Welcome back to the Voice of Metal. I am so sorry that I had some technical difficulties. I appreciate each and every one of the people that have been on here before. I'm sorry it's so late. I'm hoping there'll be some people on the live stream, but if not, that's fine. It's rather interesting. Here I am. While I'm waiting for my computer to boot up. I saw this article on Loudwire about Cliff Burton, and I thought, what a great and interesting story, especially if he hadn't died. And I was going down through some of this, and I don't remember everything in the video that I saw, but I know he had passed away in, I think it was 83. He was 24 years old. He'd been with the band for 3 years, and he did their first three albums, which, and he had a little play in and Justice for All a little bit. He had his kind of little hands in there just a little bit as they were kind of touring. I think they were working on it while they were doing that, from what it says in the video. Anyway, it's rather interesting. Would Metallica be the same band they are today? Would they be more of the thrash metal band that they were before? Because I think what they were saying in the video was Cliff really influenced them quite a bit, with James and Lars in the band when they were doing their songwriting. And if you think about it, I do know I guess, which I didn't know, the jazz aspect of his background. And even James has said that he was probably one of the few people in the band, let alone any band at the time, that had some sort of musical background where they actually studied music theory and other things. So you think about this guy is a bass player, but they said that he played it like he would, like a main style guitar. In other words, it commanded some attention. Basically, he brought that forward into all the songs that he did, and I think a lot of that has to do with that background. And it's kind of cool because I think that's important. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Sometimes having things toned down to where they're repetitive and the same thing over and over again, I don't think that works all the time. I think you have to have something out there that kind of stands out on its own, that's a lot different, something dramatic, something classic. I think that's where he shined in his music, but he could keep up with the speed of James Hetfield, because they said that he was a definite quick guitarist then, and he still is today, with a lot of his songs. And he's toned down some of the songs. I mean, they're not super fast on some of the songs that are out there. It's rather interesting. Would they be who they are now? I don't know. And the rather interesting thing, and this is the one thing I'm going to point out right now to all those people out there that have said Metallica was a sellout, I don't think that was the case. I think it's a dynamic change, because he was in Injustice for All, and right after that was the Black Album, which made him huge. But they had another musical person involved in production that actual album, which is Chris Rock, I think is who it was, the producer, from what I remember. And they worked on, instead of doing a lot more screaming kind of like regular metal stuff, he told James he needed to learn how to project his voice and learn how to the breathing techniques and all these things that he needed to do his vocals even better. And if you hear the songs back then and you hear that same song played live today, even on live albums, you can tell a huge difference in that. But the dynamic of the song is still there. And then Justice for All, that was the right at the end of where Cliff Burton was kind of being as a part of the band, right? And apparently, when they first discovered him, he was getting ready to leave the band anyway because he said there's some differences in this and the other. And the way Cliff Burton had mentioned at the very end of this video, and this is what makes me feel this way about it, is that I don't give a blank what anybody else says. We're doing what we want to do. If you don't like it, oh well. You know, in other words, he goes, F you. You know? So whether or not he would go that direction, a more commercial route with Bob Rock, that did I think that I'm pretty sure he did some of the stuff for Motley Crue, which was one of their bigger albums, from what I recall. I forgot which one it was, but a lot of people know the songs off of the album that he portrayed. That was like one of their highlights of the career. I think it was like maybe late 80s, possibly early 90s, I believe. I'm not certain on that. I'd have to look that up. But what I'm saying is, I think with his influence in the production with Cliff, I think Cliff probably would have went with it. But I think I think it might be the same kind of songs they are now, but I think they would probably add a few more complexities into the music. So it might be, Enter Sandman, but they might have this really cool, Cliff Burton feel to it, I think. And who knows? And I'm hoping if Robert ever listens and watches my thing on the new albums, it'd be nice if I would have had this out before 72 Seasons, because I really believe if Robert is true to his word, honoring Cliff's legacy, as he said, and he promised Cliff that he was going to do, I think, really, to be honest, if he's going to do that, I think he ought to try to do some of the same kind of style of music that he did in the music, and don't let James or anybody else, and Lars especially, to dictate that part. They need to add that component into to have that complexity in their music. Just like a lot of other bands I've heard, and I know there are some bands that are kind of, I love the music, it's just not as good as it could be, I guess. I mean, I don't hate the music. I mean, I've always liked certain types of music in different styles, different feels. But the newest Sepultura album, I think, is right there. I think that's one of those albums, Quatra, I think is one of those albums that speaks volumes when it comes to the complexities of a song, the vocals that are played in it, and you hear the drums, you hear the balance. It's a balance of everything. It's like an opera, if you think about it. And Sepultura and Max Cavalera, the Cavalera brothers, all those guys right there have that component. If bands don't understand that, I don't know if I don't know what their background in that is, and that's one of the questions I would love to ask Max and Igor. And I don't remember his name from Sepultura. I apologize to him for not remembering his name. I know it, I just can't think of it. My brain's kind of fried. But his vocals in that, the complexities of the songs that they've done, it's the Agony of Defeat. I think that's a phenomenal song. There is another one with another singer. It's a female singer. I can't remember her name offhand, but that's another one to check out off that album. Guardians of the Earth, I think, is another song that's on that album, I believe, which are really good songs. I really believe that. I think those are the kinds of songs that Cliff would have influenced in the band. I don't think it would be quite so as they put it on Loudwire, commercial, because of the fact that he had that background. He was more like a Beethoven of metal because he was influenced by that. I mean, that's some of the stuff he learned. And he actually learned, I should say, maybe I need to be a bass player, because the fact that he used to play piano I played piano when I was younger. I wasn't very good at it though. That's the reason why I don't play music right now. But I guess to me it was a little boring. But I guess now that I know that Cliff did it, shoot, maybe I should go back into playing piano. But I don't have a piano anymore, unfortunately, because they're not cheap. I guess you could do electric piano keyboard. And if you see some of the other bands out there, there are a few bands that do play piano. And I think some of that does add a lot to it. I think different instruments adds a lot to a song. I mean, even though it's not metal per se, the the versatility and the how you say the complexities of a song that's written beyond that of what the normal band is usually is. That I think that right there is what, for me personally, when I'm listening to music, metal music, the ones I think are the best are the ones that have this uniqueness, this complexity. Bloody Wood is another good example of that because they have quite a few different style instruments. That's why a lot of people like Slipknot. Slipknot has those complexity. They have different types of instruments. They have, what do they call that? A DJing kind of style sound to it on some of the tracks where they scratch some records on some things, and they have different types of style drums. They have, it's kind of like Blue Man Group. I know they're not a metal band, but if you've never heard them before, you need to check them out because they use pipes for instruments. And really, quite frankly, that's the kind of thing I look for with the vocals. I really believe that when you add something that it's not quite so repetitive and you change it up, that's what makes a good song. That's what makes an album. That's what makes a band big. Honest to God. Because there are some bands out there that have been playing the kind of the same song and dance kind of sounds that I've heard. And really, quite frankly, I don't know how they actually make it. I don't see how they get so big. Maybe it's because of the commercialism. I'm not into that. Metallica has at times, I will admit, the songs that they have now are kind of like that. They still sound like themselves, but I think there are some things they do differently. Personally, I think the one thing, and I didn't quite understand and grasp the concept, when you listen to the Saint Anger album, and I didn't hear it or didn't think about it right away, is that the song, and I think Cliff would actually like this because James is not quite so polished. It's not refined. It seems like more of a grungy kind of a gritty kind of thing. It reminds you of like the Misfits or I'm trying to think of some other bands, kind of like a grunge rock kind of style to me, because it's not like with Madly Angry with You. It's just one of those things, and they did that kind of in the Garage Days Revisited stuff. So if you listen to some of that, they play the songs the way they originally were, but then they kind of added their own little flair to where you knew it was a Metallica styled version of that song. And that's one of the things I do like covers for that one reason, is hearing a song that you know really well, the ones you enjoy, and see if somebody can just tweak it just a little bit, make it a little heavier, a little bit different sounding, adding something to it to add their own flair to it. And that's the one thing I definitely like. I enjoy. Oh, guess what? I got a viewer. Is that Clover? Or is that now I know his name, I just can't think of it now. Sorry. Anyway, some of my other viewers that have been on my channel before. Sorry, I lost my focus there. But I think that has a lot to say when you take a cover and you can make it your own, but not make it to where it doesn't sound right. Because I even saw a tribute to the Beach Boys not too long ago. Even though it's not metal, it's rather interesting to hear the original. You know what the originals sound like, but then you hear these other people do twists of it, and it's really good. Who was it? There was I try to remember who it was that did one of their songs, and he did it so well. He made it sound like the original, but he still made it his own, which I really enjoyed and I really appreciate. I think it's really great that he did that, because my dad used to listen to the Beach Boys, And that reminds me, speaking of which, there was somebody out there that I really greatly appreciate and I highly admire and highly respect, and I wouldn't do anything to really make them mad at me. And she knows who it is. She helped me out through that at the time, and that was about the time when my dad was having some issues and problems with his health, and I wanted to go to the show before that to meet them for the first time, and I couldn't. And she kind of comfort did comforted comforted me in my time of need, which I really appreciate and still appreciate even now. She's a great, wonderful person, and I wouldn't want to do anything to upset her at all because she means so much to me. Um, and actually, somebody that I would want to get to know long before the time that I actually started talking to her because I didn't know who she was at the time. So she knows that it's like been, I think it was like 16 or 17 years ago, I think, because my son's 17, and I think he was probably maybe 2 at the time after my ex-wife left me. And I saw this person on an ad. So, I think that kind of stuff says a lot. And I think their band, I thought, had that at the time. I'm not sure if their newer stuff will be like the original ones. I think if they keep on that track, then I think they've got something. I think the last couple of ones aren't as good as the first couple ones they've had. I think there's some thing about those, especially like their very first couple songs that they did. I think were some of their best work, because they were really trying hard, and they even did a cover of Pantera's "Walk." I think is what it was. Yeah, I think that's what it was. It's rather interesting. So I think that it's one of those things. It's for me personally, when it comes to a band, when they're first starting off, I can understand doing covers, getting your feet wet, because they're well known. And even when you hear people do songs on like America's Got Talent or American Idol, it's the same thing. If you do your own original songs, it may not hit because people don't know what it is. And until they hear you first, they won't know. So it's good to do that at the beginning. But once you get yourself to a point, you have to keep going with your own songs. But don't do covers. Don't do all the time. Don't do singles. Apparently there's one band that I didn't realize that had quite a few singles. Like, oh wow. And I go, I didn't know they did that many, but they've been around for a while. So to me that's a little more okay than a band that's kind of in the mid part of their career. Like they're after the fourth album should be huge. That's the way Metallica was. That's the way a lot of the other bands were. Now System though, they hit it off pretty quick. Even Slipknot, I think their first album was phenomenal, but I think they've been playing for a while before that, so it's one of those things. It's like it kind of made sense for them to do that. Some other bands that are not as well known, because I guess Metallica was well known in the underground per se, but I think when they get to their fourth album, that's where it kind of hit it off. Unfortunately, that didn't have much of Cliff's influence. Unfortunately, I'm hoping that maybe, just maybe, that Robert helps bring that in there, because when you hear him play from his past stuff, Suicidal Tendencies, not Black Sabbath with Ozzy, but he's playing Ozzy songs though. But I'm thinking of what is that one called? Not Suicidal Tendencies. It's Groove Family Psycho. That's the album. I can't think of now the name. I can't believe it. It's one of my favorites. But if you hear the bass, you hear the guitar, you hear all that stuff, it's a lot more complex, a lot more intricate, and it has a little bit of story. It has the lead singer from Suicide Tennis in it too as well, and that's one of the things I liked about it, because it's not just a song; it's a story with it. Kind of like Sacred Reich. Sacred Reich does the same thing. I listened to one of their first albums before, and it wasn't as good as the one that was later on. I think they went from a certain sound before to a different type of kind of feel, or how you say, construction of their music itself, because they sound like more like a story, and they're having this opera kind of a certain thing about it, and they have this really cool vibe to it. I guess it's kind of like Machine Head. Machine Head does the same thing. They got this great little uniqueness of their own. It's like Slayer. They were talking about that. And another, Smashing Pumpkins. I was watching a video on that. The lead singer was talking about Slayer is Slayer music. You know, it's not really considered metal slash. I mean, it shouldn't be considered metal or this, that, and that, because it's his own. You know, it doesn't sound like anything else out there, and that says a lot. I think that means a lot. I think that bands that do that kind of stuff, that's what makes a band. Kind of like Red Hot Chili Peppers. There were certain songs that were, and albums that they did were phenomenal just because they were unique. System was the same way. It's one of those things. They have that different, unique sound that they bring to the table, like Cliff did. So I am going to end my stream here soon. I just want to say thanks for all the like and subscribes, and I'm hoping that you all do that for me right now. I definitely need a lot more followers, unfortunately, and a lot more watched hours. So please watch some of the broadcasts, and then eventually, hopefully, I'll get somebody on here. I did find out who might be one of the managers of some of the bands, local bands in Denver. So I'm thinking about sending her a message and asking her if that would be good to kind of have them on the channel later on. I'm not going to do it right away because I still got to get some stuff up so I can interview, talk to people on the stream, which I have been neglecting because I've got other things in my life that I have to work on, unfortunately. But this is one of my main dedications too. I've been trying to do all of it at once. So bear with me, be patient. Don't forget, headbang that like and subscribe. And don't forget, where we talk about all things metal and maybe even some classic and jazz along with it to bring it all into focus, right? Like Cliff would say. And don't forget, Cliff would definitely appreciate people who take in the classics, so do that. That reminds, there is one song that sounds like Damage Incorporated. I forgot what it was called. I'll have to put that, maybe if I can find it again, I will put that song into some of the actual songs that so you can listen to it, basically is what it is. Because if you hear some of the closeness of it, it's not exactly the same thing, but it's the feel of it, basically. So, anyway, thanks for watching. Take care. Have a good night. Hope to see you live, maybe at a concert somewhere in Denver, Colorado, and maybe in the future somewhere else. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. Thanks for watching. Take care. Have a good night, and I will talk to you guys later.